Hello again and welcome to another edition of Newsmaker of the Week. I'm Leon Warden and I'm pleased to welcome this week's Newsmaker City Council candidate, Jon Hatami.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So how's that campaign trail treating you?
Oh, it's good. It's good. We just got through with absentee ballots, and so we're on an absentee ballot chase right now. I just got done doing a precinct down in Valencia.
Meaning that you mail to everybody who files for an absentee ballot. That's
Correct.
what an absentee chase is.
Correct. So we've mailed mail to them. We've also gone to houses, and now we're going back and also calling them to try to make sure they've actually voted and to also ask if they would vote for me.
And who's we? You got a big army of volunteers?
I got a lot of volunteers. So I got about between 20 and 30 volunteers that help me on any given day.
Okay. Now, let's get the hard part out of the way here, okay? Usually when, the city council is kind of a special thing as political offices go. People care to some degree, I suppose, about Assembly and Senate and Congress and those things, but city councils, close to home, people care very much about their backyard. And usually when somebody runs for a city council seat, they've spent the last couple of decades as a community volunteer in some form or another, or at least politically active. Whether serving on a city commission, or leading a nonprofit, or in some other way active in the community. And I was critical of your decision to run for city council because, as far as anybody knows, you hadn't done those things. And city council, to some degree, it seemed kind of as a privilege. So the question is, what have you done to deserve a seat on the city council?
Well, first, I think running for office, that's an American thing. I mean, anybody can do that. I mean, if you're an American, you were born in America, you should be allowed to run for political office. So I think a lot of people need to know, especially younger people, that they have the right, if they live in America, they're an American citizen, they should be able to run. I mean, that being said, you said some things that I do agree with. One, have I served my community? Yes. I spent over 6.5 years in the United States Army. Half of that as an infantryman and half of that as a military police sergeant. So I believe that's serving my community and my country. Now I'm a deputy district attorney. I've done that for almost 6 years. I've put away more criminals than anybody on the city council. So I'll challenge anybody in the city council to say that I haven't done more for the community regarding putting away criminals in Los Angeles County, which is Santa Clarita is part of that.
Now, Bob Keller's arrested one or two in his career.
He probably has, probably more than that because he's done it for 25 years. But I did say put him away in actual jail or prison.
Yes, you did.
And so, but I agree with you. And Bob gets a lot of my respect. I've talked to him, I've met him. I have a lot of police officers who are friends of mine, and they do a great job. So, I mean, he did 25 years in LAPD, so he gets a lot of my respect for that. I just got recently endorsed by the LAPPL, which is the Police Protective League, which is the league that he was in for 25 years. And so I do consider that a real honor. That being said, growing up in Canyon Country, going to Canyon High, being in the military, now being a prosecutor, going to COC, I mean, those are things that you do in the community to learn about it. Maybe I'm not traditional, sort of like Lorene West or Bob Keller or Lori Ender, where they did more type of things in city council. But I think that America is open to a lot of different types of individuals and a lot of different types of ways to get into politics. They said that about George Bush, that he was only a governor. He didn't do anything else and he shouldn't be able to run. So I think that, I mean, you can say that with a lot of different things. I think Mayor Ender didn't have as much experience as some of the other candidates, and they said that about her too. But she did serve on some committees and work in the PTA. But I do a lot of stuff regarding law enforcement. And so I think that, that does qualify me. Also living here in Santa Clarita, growing up here and knowing about the community to run.
Kind of the other half of that too is that a lot of the times when we see people, like most of the people you mentioned just now, decide to throw their hat in the ring, not only have they been involved on the nonprofit boards or commissions or whatever, but they also approach it with an attitude of, look, here's who I am, you know me, the city is great, and all these people have, in past city councils and everybody have created, and all the nonprofits and everybody have created a wonderful city to live in. I want to continue to serve, and I want to serve as a member of the city council because we have a great place to live, and I want to keep it great. Your approach was different. The first thing that anybody heard out of Jon Hatami was criticism, and it was criticism about crime, and it was criticism about kind of a smorgasbord of issues. And I know to a lot of people, even to me, I perceived that not as you're just, well, here's a politician who's attacking the two people he's running against. And those people whose seats are up this year, of course, are Lori Ender and Bob Keller. But when you criticize the city for those issues, you're not just criticizing those two people or the 5 people on the city council, but as I say, you're criticizing 1,000 people who've come before them and trying to work on these issues and make this place good. So here's somebody coming from, that nobody ever heard of, coming from where? Criticizing these things. And so that was part of the issue. Why did you take that approach?
I think the first thing about coming from nowhere, if the people in Facebook, the young people didn't create Facebook, we wouldn't have a Facebook. They didn't sit around and wait like Apple. They were young people and they stepped up because they're capitalists. This is a capitalist society. So I do believe that if people want to, if they're American citizens, they believe that, they want to serve their community, they should be able to step up and do it. That being said, I do believe that Santa Clarita is a great place. I wouldn't want to live here. I wouldn't want to raise a family here. My wife's pregnant. She's a deputy sheriff here. I wouldn't want to do those things. She went to Valencia. I went to Canyon. I wouldn't want to do all those things if I didn't love living here in this community. And I'm not going anywhere else. I bought a house here with the VA home loan, so I'm staying here. That being said, I do believe you need to be proactive. Most of my friends are police officers. I work in crime every day, so I probably see it a little different than some people. And I do agree I can get a little jaded because I see that every day, day in and day out. And so part of being a good person, a reasonable person, is trying to see that. That being said, I did see that you need to be honest. And part about being honest is saying that we have an issue regarding crime, and it's different than it has been. We have an issue regarding heroin, that's different than it has been. We have an issue regarding gangs, and that's different than it has been. It's much different than it was in the early 90s. It's much different than it was in early 2000. And a lot of deputies brought that to my attention. And so I brought those issues out. I wasn't trying to criticize anybody and say that you're doing a bad job. What I was trying to say is, here's an issue, here's some crime. The AT&T store just got robbed by some people from AV, and they're also being charged with kidnapping. Those are some serious criminals. And so, somebody was killed last year in a shooting. To me, those are things that normally don't happen here in Santa Clarita, and we do see them happening a lot more. And so I don't think it's anybody's fault, per se, but I think we need to talk about it. And I think younger people can come up with ideas that some people who have been around here a long time may not be able to.
Well, that's the thing, though. That's the problem that I'm having. You say that we see those things happening a lot more, is what you just said. I have a jaded view too when it comes to crime. As somebody in the news business, I see a lot of things that, on a magnified scale from what I guess normal people perceive. And so when you give the perception that we have a crime problem, no denying that we have a crime problem. But the thing about that is, though, that according to figures from your wife's agency, from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, 5 years ago we had 6,500 Part 1 major crimes, violent and serious crimes. 6,500 crimes per year 5 years ago in the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station Patrol area. 1 year ago we had about 4,000 Part 1 crimes per year. Today it's down to about 3,600. Okay, not counting the last couple of months with all Jerry Brown's early releases and all them, how they're gonna skew the numbers. But without that, up until at least Christmas, we were down to 3,600. So the crime rate in the Santa Clarita Valley, our population hasn't declined, so the crime rate has been coming down over these last 5 years. And so when you say things like, we didn't see those kinds of crimes before, well, yeah, we've always had a murder here and there. We've always had a couple of murders. We still hold the distinction as being the place of the worst CHP massacre in history, with 4 cops killed back in 1970. So we've always had the 1 or 2, and the AT&T store weird anomalies, the things that are big and out there. So how do you explain that? How do you explain where you're coming from? Bearing in mind that we're all jaded because of the business that we're in, why are you giving the perception that we have more crime when the statistics say that we don't?
Well, first off, the murder in October was by some gang members, and so we haven't had a gang murder here in quite a long time. That being said, actually in October is when AB 109.
A few years ago we had a couple.
We did, but AB 109 and 117 took effect in October. And that's when they started implementing it. You're now seeing the statistics in January and February. Both months we've
Talking about the early releases.
Both months. And AB 109 and 117, basically that's realignment, which what means is that they made a lot of felonies. So if you get convicted of a felony on certain crimes, you won't go to state prison. You'll go to county jail. And because county jail is so full, especially in LA County, and because the early release program of Sheriff Baca, a lot of these individuals who get convicted of crimes and may have to serve 8 years actually get released after a couple months. The other thing that they're doing is, let's say you have a prior to 11, which is a robbery, and then the crime you go to jail for is a possession case, possession of some type of drugs. They rank you on that last conviction, and so basically based upon that last conviction, you're nonviolent even though you could have a robbery in the past. And so they are releasing a lot of people, and it did take effect in October. Now we're seeing that in January and February, an increase in crime. I believe that when I first started this, and then when I actually signed up for City Council in December, things had started changing a lot. So my perception, also supported by the numbers, is that there is more crime in Santa Clarita. I think in January, it was 44% increase in Santa Clarita Valley. That's a pretty big increase. But I do understand what you're trying to say too. I mean, I think that
those numbers are going to come up now with those early releases because you know they were. I figured it out one time. Santa Clarita has about 0.6% of the state's population, but because the predominance of those early releases are people who've committed things like property crimes, and we have a preponderance of property. We have more property crime than we have violent crime in Santa Clarita, and so even though we have 0.6% of the state's population, we were getting about 6% of all those early releases. So clearly, we're going to see an increase from here going forward.
Hey, reasonable people can differ. That's one thing I've learned that, especially in my career. Second, we've had a major influx of deaths from heroin and from Oxycontin that hasn't been like that a couple years ago. There wasn't the deaths of heroin and Oxycontin that we have now. And this started back in 2010, 2011. It only came to the City Council because somebody brought it to their attention. But I mean, the facts are clear that the deaths from Oxycontin, the deaths from heroin, starting in 2010, 2011 to the present, are much greater than they ever have been in the history of Santa Clarita.
I want to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to figure out why it is that I'm getting the perception that we've got this crime problem and heroin problem and all these other problems because of something the City Council either is or isn't doing.
Hi, I'm Phil Lantis, and you're watching SCVTV, local television for Santa Clarita.
It's time again for the Santa Clarita Cowboy Festival, presented by Lockheed Federal Credit Union, happening Saturday and Sunday, April 21st and 22nd on the western streets of the historic Melody Ranch Motion Picture Studios. Located just minutes north of Los Angeles, the Cowboy Festival features 4 stages with live music and entertainment, activities for all ages, and the best peach cobbler west of the Mississippi. Admission is only $20 for adults and $10 for children. For information and tickets, log on to cowboyfestival.org. That's cowboyfestival.org.
Welcome back. We're here with Santa Clarita City Council candidate Jon Hatami. The election is coming up on April 10th. You're one of 3 challengers trying to unseat one of 2 people who are occupying these 2 open seats, Lori Ender and Bob Keller. And when we left off, we were talking about you've made issues of the crime rate, you've discussed heroin, and because you're going for, maybe it's because you're going for a city council seat that already has a couple people in them, it seems as if you're saying that those things somehow stem from something the city council is or isn't doing.
Well, I mean, I think part of city council is talking to the community. And it's funny that a lot of people that I've talked to when I've gone out and campaigned, a lot of those people, the first thing that they talk about is crime. The first thing, and obviously they all know I'm running for city council. That's what I tell them when I come and talk to them. So I think part of being a city council person is listening to the community. Same with schools. I mean, schools and city council, money from schools comes from the county, comes from the state, doesn't necessarily come from city council. However, we still have to be open to listening to what people have to say. That being said, I mean, the Sheriff's Department is funded by the city. And the Sheriff's Department is the department that's authorized to arrest and apprehend criminals. And so there is some connection. City Council funds the J team, which is the juvenile team. City Council funds the resource deputies, which are deputies assigned to the high schools. City Council meets with the captain. The captain comes to all the City Council meetings. So there's a great connection between City Council and law enforcement.
Sure there is, but do you blame either law enforcement or your wife, who works for the Sheriff's Department, or the City Council? Do you blame them for the crime?
No, I mean,
what can they be doing that they aren't currently doing to eliminate crime?
The first thing when it comes to crime is, especially as a deputy district attorney, I'm very careful not to put blame on certain people. Crime sometimes just happens. I mean, you can't blame people for
somebody
crime.
goes and shoots somebody, I don't automatically think it's Lori Ender's fault.
That's right. That's right. Just like I said, people have to accept personal responsibility for what they do. So there isn't necessarily I'm going to blame somebody for doing something wrong. That being said, I mean, some of the things I've said, I do believe we should have OSS detectives out here, which is Operation Safe Streets. Operation Safe Street detectives are in a lot of cities, a lot. We pay a lot of money to our Sheriff's Department. We don't have OSS detectives here, which are gang detectives. If they're here, yes, the stats will increase because part of their job is to go arrest gang members. But that's something I think we could do. That's something I think we need to do. We don't have mall deputies at the mall. Almost every mall in Los Angeles County has mall deputies. We don't have mall deputies. I think that's something we could do. There's a group called the Juggalos that hang out in the mall. There's a lot of drugs at the mall. And so that's something else that we could do.
Juggalos a gang?
They are listed in cow gangs. So yes, I mean, I think there's an argument. Is the Juggalos comparable to the East Coast Crips or the Fortray Gangster Crips? No. That being said, they are in cow gangs, and so they are listed in California. And under the Penal Code section, which is 186.22, they do qualify as a gang. However, I wouldn't characterize them as a gang as dangerous as like the Grape Street Crips or as dangerous as Pasadena, Denver lanes. However, in Santa Clarita, they are involved in a lot of drug transactions, and we have a major drug problem here. And so I think that's a problem. But no, I wouldn't characterize them as, and they'll tell you that they're not a gang, they're more of a musical, you know, they have a musical following, but they have a common sign or symbol. They meet all the qualifications of a gang, and they do involve themselves in criminal activity.
Walks like a gang and talks like a gang, yeah. Okay.
Correct.
What you're saying about specific allocations of law enforcement dollars, I mean, public safety is the single biggest expenditure of the City Council budget. I mean, it spends more on public safety than it spends on parks or road construction or anything else. So I don't understand, well, I don't know how much I want to dwell on that anymore, but I think that what we've seen from the City Council is that if you know, the sheriff's captain goes to the City Council and says, look, I need X amount of money for X number of deputies, you know, the city hires new deputies every year. So is there something wrong with that relationship? Is that not happening if they're asked? I mean, we don't see the sheriff's captain asking for anything that he's not getting.
I would say this, that both Mayor Ender and Bob Keller have made public safety their #1 priority in this election. They've both come out and said that. So they must know something because Bob's been on the council quite a long time. I've been endorsed by the Association of Los Angeles Deputies, the Los Angeles Police Protective League, and the LA County Firefighters. So I must know something. I don't think that you could put all the onus of doing everything I said on Captain Becker or on anybody. I think it's a team effort, and I think getting together as a team, dealing with the resources you have, working with Mike Antonovich, allocating resources in different areas. If you get somebody who has a lot of expertise in law enforcement on the City Council, and I'm not saying Bob doesn't, but Bob has been around a long time, things change a lot. But I think if you get somebody on there, they can work with the captain, maybe deal with the resources in a different way.
You know, just to change subjects only slightly, because I don't know if we're going to get off this crime issue. In a candidates forum, you were asked what the single biggest issue is, and I think you said heroin. Is heroin a bigger problem than like meth or Oxycontin or kids stealing prescription drugs, or why heroin in particular?
Heroin is a drug that recently, probably in the last 5 years or so, they started manufacturing it. The cartels did. The cartels operated with marijuana. They also operated with cocaine. And then they changed to meth because we outlawed ephedrine in the United States. And ephedrine's legal in Mexico, so they started producing meth. Meth will kill you, but probably over 10 or 12 years. Marijuana is probably not going to kill you. Then they started producing heroin, and it's black tar heroin, and it's about 70 to 80% pure. And so heroin, on the other hand, can kill you. And now that you could smoke it, if you smoke it once, it actually can kill you. And so I think that's the issue. Is methamphetamine is probably a problem, just like every other drug. We don't hear about it as much because people aren't dying from it. Heroin is out there and people actually are dying from it. So I do believe that's why you hear about it more. I believe it's more of a problem here in Santa Clarita because I believe we have an influx of heroin here, and the reason for that is our community and other communities are being targeted because we're good communities. We have a lot of families. We have a lot of people who work. It looks like our communities have a lot of money, and so now they're being targeted because they believe they can make a lot of money in these communities. So yes, I believe heroin is a bigger issue than other drugs.
The drug dealers give away heroin.
They do. It's called fronting. Mm-hmm. Almost everybody does it, and what happens is people who sell it at first are front it. And a lot of kids, because some kids smoke marijuana, probably a larger percentage than we think, when they're introduced to heroin, they could smoke it, so they think it's okay. And so at first it's given away for free because it's pretty cheap. And when they get hooked, it's very, very addictive. And so the first time you smoke it, for most kids, you can become addicted to it. And then you become addicted to it and you want more. Then you start buying it, and then you run out of money, and then you steal from your parents, and then you run out of money, and then you go steal from a store, and then you get arrested and get a felony.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. As a prosecutor in the Antelope Valley, or your wife as a sheriff's deputy here, I mean, are you seeing robberies, burglaries and robberies in the Santa Clarita Valley, done by people who are looking for money specifically to buy drugs?
Burglaries and theft. I wouldn't necessarily say robberies. No. Robberies is kind of a higher level. If you actually rob somebody, that's a very violent crime. Mm-hmm. You don't see that as much from people on drugs. You do see it sometimes, but robberies are more done by gangsters and people like that. Most people addicted to drugs, theft, especially from all sorts of different stores, second-degree commercial burglaries from all sorts of different stores, and then first-degree burglaries of people's homes. Those do happen. More of the violent crimes you're going to see from gangsters and other types. But there's a large majority of people who commit thefts are doing it for drugs.
Just have a minute or two left. Let's, we could go into the whole partisan political stuff, and has Buck McKeon endorsed you or no?
No, but he may. I've tried. Mm-hmm. He's given me money.
People say you used to be a Democrat and you turned Republican?
Yes, that's true. I've been...
I think everybody running is a Republican.
Correct.
Right?
I've been a Republican, I've been an independent, and I've been a Democrat. I decided I have never run for political office.
So this is your first time out, and let's say that you get elected. What's going to be your approach to kind of getting, up to speed on a lot of things other than your forte of crime? A lot of other things to deal with. We don't have time to discuss them here, but what's going to be your approach to getting caught up on those?
No, I mean that's a great question. Part about being responsible, part about working and representing other people, is you take the time to get up to date on everything. And so I'm a really good reader. I went to law school. I've passed 4 bar exams. I can work.
And you only look like you're 21.
Right.
You're actually how old?
42.
And you have kids?
No, my wife's pregnant.
Your wife's pregnant with the first one. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you. So, I will take that honor and use it to do the best job I can for the community. And that means working hard. That means studying up. That means going and meeting all the other councilmen or council people or council women and getting all the documentation I can get, meeting with Ken Polskamp, sitting down there and studying up on everything, taking the time to get myself up to date and going and talking to you and other people who know a lot more than I do and trying to get more up to date with all of the issues and then go and talk to the community.
Jon Hatami, candidate for City Council on April 10th. Whatever happens on April 10th, I look forward to seeing your continued involvement in this community. Thank you for joining us. Missed any portion of this program, you can see it again and again on SCVTV.com. Check back here, Time Warner Cable Channel 20, AT&T Uverse 99, Sunday 8:30 a.m., Thursday 9 p.m. for another Newsmaker of the Week.